I think is that what I think everybody's saying that now. That's like the default.
Right.
We're all cats on branches.
Funny thing is, a month ago, I wasn't doing any, machine learning was R&D. And this month I've been doing like nonstop project-based machine learning.
That's cool.
So, but not generative AI like in that sense. I guess, it's probably good to define a distinction, but like machine learning.
If it helps, I also just use Perplexity to run a research report on literally the current trends and examples and future forecasting, just so I had something that was as accurate as to date as possible versus 3 months old, considering the speed. So
Well, that's it. And tomorrow it'll be out of date. So
it'll be out of date. It's already out of date by the time we start the call.
that's right. Like I literally every time I see something in LinkedIn, I'll save it. And I'm like, I will never like how do I do? I would save like 3 or 4 things a day. Like I need to hire someone to, okay, look at these things I save and see if they're useful.
My inbox, that actually like weighs on me because I never get to read them and then they just like stack up and I'm like, what do I do? I'm so behind.
Well, just but there's got to be a point where you just burn it. Like I'm at let's see. I unread like I archive anything that's spam. So in theory my unread is things I actually mean to respond to. And I'm currently at 3,744 unread emails.
Oh no, I'm a zero box in
Yes.
Whoa, impressive.
Same here.
not do it.
You got a system, you got to keep on top of it, but it works.
That is impressive if you can pull it off. My zero inbox, if it's something's truly on fire, they'll email again.
Now, to be fair, I have folders that are like newsletters that I haven't read, but I'm just like, I can't, you're stressing me out. So I just like filter them.
Oh, I see. So zero inbox is just
But like anything that's addressed to Christine that's I need to do is generally like that zero inbox.
wow, nice.
I
It's
think we're having this entire conversation in front of a room full of people trying to get their audio working. So
oh
we're
good.
going deep down a new topic. It's funny, years ago, because no one has control over us right now. So we're just going to talk about this. I had, this is way before AI, but I was inbox zero focused and I ended up having an assistant,
Hello?
like a virtual. Oh, there we go. Anyways, I
All right.
wish
Can
AI
you
would do
guys
the
hear
same.
us?
Now we can
Yep.
hear you.
Yep.
But now
All
I'm
right. So, welcome everyone. Sorry, we had a little mic problem there. To Vision 2025. This is an industry discussion panel on generative AI in visual effects and film. And I'd like to introduce some of our panelists we have for today. So, without further ado, we have Rachit Singh from Atomic Cartoons. He's the Director of Innovation and Technology, and he has over 15 years of experience in the media and entertainment industry and a background in information systems and animation. And he leads the 2D and Unreal Engine pipelines, champions emerging technology, and focuses on improving artist workflows and studio efficiency through innovation and automation. So we welcome you, Rachit, to our panel.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. It's awesome.
We have Jonathan Bouchard, who is here with us in person. He's the CTO at Real Effects Animation. And in his role, he oversees the company's technology strategy and drives innovation across its portfolio of projects. He has earned his PhD in electrical and computer engineering from McGill in 2019 and joined Real Effects as an R&D supervisor in the same year. So welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Lovely for you to join us. We also have Christine Middlemas joining us, She's a 20-year industry veteran, currently serving as a professor in simulation and game design at Georgian College and the CTO of a stealth mode AI startup. You may have heard of Christine before. She used to lead technology development engineering strategy at Monsters, Aliens, Robots, and Zombies as the CTO, and transitioned into technology leadership after years of developing consultants and other various roles across different platforms. Her project credits include Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, How to Train Your Dragon, Hidden World, Kung Fu Panda 3, and many, many, many others, as you can see here. And she is an active member in the Visual Effects Society and Television Academy Science and Technology peer group. So welcome, Christine.
Great, thank you so much.
And we also have Lawrence Simet, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, who is the head of technology at VFX and the VES Toronto chair. And he has been working across VFX and animation for over 25 years and currently the head of technology at VFX in Toronto. He builds infrastructure and tools to support VFX and film and TV. He's the chair of VES Toronto section, a longtime instructor at Centennial College, and a former Autodesk product leader who helped shape Maya. And he is passionate about connecting creators with the tools that empower them to create. So we welcome you, Lawrence, as well.
Hi, everybody.
And finally, we have Ben McEvoy, who's the managing partner and executive producer at Friends and Enemies, which is an award-winning creative agency powered by a distributed network of freelance talent. He leads creative initiatives, manages operations, and oversees integrated production across a wide range of projects for clients, media, culture, education, and technology. He has over 20 years of experience and delivered award-winning interactive and integrated work for brands and broadcasters, including TVO, CBC, Vice, Lionsgate, 20th Century Fox, Spotify, and more. He also brings expertise in post-secondary education and professional skills in curricula at Sheridan, Seneca, and Centennial. He serves on the board of Computer Animation Studios of Ontario, co-founded the Toronto Animation Arts Festival International, and speaks regularly at places such as this and The Smartest, exploring the intersection of creativity, business, and innovation. So welcome, Ben.
Thank you. I regret the length of my bio.
No worries. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here just so we can all see each other. There it is. All right. So today we want to talk a little bit about generative AI, because as I'm sure you are all aware in the audience, that AI has been reaching every headline and every news agency. Sorry, I'm just trying to find Zoom here. It's disappeared on me. Problem of a two-screen system. So generative AI then includes things like text generation, image generation, video generation, audio generation. It's everywhere. And everywhere you see these headlines, they're saying it's going to kill your job. It's coming for you. Is this real? So I thought I'd put together this panel today because a lot of people are saying that these tools are going to eliminate film production. They're going to eliminate developers. They're just going to eliminate humans in general. And I thought it would be fun to have a real honest conversation about it. So the first question we have is, how are you, if you are using generative AI of any form in your roles that you currently have? So since you're sitting right beside me, Jonathan, how about I start with you?
All right. I think my answer is going to be boring because I believe I'm doing what everybody else is doing. Personally, I think the most valuable use of AI that I'm using right now, and maybe that's not original, is all of these meeting transcripts that we can get automatically. I think that this is very valuable for somebody that is sitting in a lot of meetings and sometimes have to skip meetings to be in super cool events like today. That I'm gonna be able to read very quickly what was discussed in 1 hour time span in about 5 minutes and understand what was the important point. So that to me is the most valuable thing. I've tried, code generation, also using AI to help compose some texts, but generally they can be helped, but not really replace anything, in my opinion, at this state. So that's me.
All right. So I'm going to go to Ben. Do you have anything you'd like to add on this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll do my very best to keep my answers short. Just as a frame of reference, the speakers that we have here, really, really incredible group of representatives from, I'd like to think, established large businesses that focus in film and television primarily. Christine, you have a great background in game. Our business, in my experience, focuses on smaller components of the industry that touch on things like VFX, animation, interactivity. So we're a small boutique agency that works with brands and does web series content. Why that's important is we don't have deep established pipelines, but we do have the ability to adopt and adapt and try new things. So, when I hear the meeting summaries, like, we're basically taking AI and saying, here's a tool, let's try it, see what it looks like. And it ranges from things like, hey, doing the synthesis and the summarization, the research and pattern finding. We're doing a lot of the kind of co-ideation work when we're working with a lot of our brands, partly because we're focused on creating content for commercial use and consumption. So we're trying to make sure we understand audiences. So there's a lot of like upfront creative work that we leverage a variety of tools. I use Perplexity almost daily now to do research. I'm using their labs to help us start to create actual early products. When it gets to the production side of things, when we work on web series, we've done some web series work. We're using these tools to augment places where we don't need to hire. So we're using it for very simple tasks, but we're also using it for things like localization. So, being able to translate quickly and then send those translations over for verification and edit versus outright localizing text. We're using it for audio to do things like expanding and contracting tracks, you name it. So for us, we're literally just it's a spaghetti on the wall situation where we take every little piece and see what works. The upside for us is it allows us to move more quickly. But unlike my peers on this panel, we're able to also get away with a far lower fidelity of output than I imagine you would for film, television, and anything like AAA video games. So for us, we're really at that stage where we have the benefit of trying as many different tools as possible and seeing what works. And some of them are great. None of them replaced any of our core processes, but they've certainly augmented a lot of our approaches to a variety of different parts of the business.
All right. How about we go with Christine? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, great. I like the word you use, Ben, augmented, because I think that's really important. For one of the things that I find that I am looking at in my companies that I've worked at is essentially speeding up the development pipeline. And so, how can we make things faster, like testing, and this is a little bit like computer science based, but how do I make testing faster? How do I make QA faster? How do I make peer reviews of code faster, deployment faster? So I don't want to have those necessarily fully done in AI, but I do want to augment them with parts of AI so that we can get more code out faster. I think that is a problem in any studio industry, really any industry though, is just people want more and there's not enough time. I think one of the other areas that I love Gamma. It is a PowerPoint maker and it makes the prettiest PowerPoints and it's really cool for somebody that doesn't have time to be creative or isn't as creative as somebody else. It really helps me. And I think the other area, this is super nerdy, but we're looking at using AI right now in a prototype to get our support answers faster. So that they're at least, we can do like a rag and like get it generated into our documentation, so that it's giving answers based on all the documentation we have in our company, so that hopefully, helping people in support, we can maybe eliminate that first tier of support before it gets more technical. So not exciting, not pretty, not flashy, but I think that doing all those things allows us to do flashy creative work. That's all.
Lawrence.
Yeah. I think all the answers so far are pretty applicable to our situation as well. But it's important to note that given that we cater to customers in the film and TV space, and the legality is still unclear on copyright with generative AI, some of our customers actually have contracts with us that stipulate that we can't use it. And so this is really important to understand. So there's definitely a big kind of difference between what's happening in the hype and what's happening in real world. But that doesn't mean we're not using it in different places in the pipeline where where it's not generating the product, the final pixels that we're doing. So things like research, Perplexity, we're often using. Our pipeline department, we don't necessarily use it to generate code because we're very careful about that kind of thing, but it's really good for doing things like coming up with complex expressions or algorithms. Like if we need a regex expression for something, it would take us like 3 days to just hack at it, or we can, ask something like Claude and it will come out with a pretty good result. The other place I've seen it, which is really cool, is that people are even artists who wouldn't normally write a script to solve a little problem, like a simple thing that they see they can automate. They'll go and, ask me, hey, can I write this, use Claude or ChatGPT to write this script? It'll help me do my work. So that's kind of a really cool change that I've seen. We do have a research department, of course. So in our research department, we have an air gap network where we are experimenting with all this stuff and generative AI. But right now, it's kind of very much limited in that space. Another great example is on administration and production side. So our producers will sometimes use it to help wrangle spreadsheets. We live in spreadsheets. We do a lot of spreadsheets. We have a lot of data, and you can also get a very complex expression out of something like ChatGPT that really helps you wrangle that data in the spreadsheet. So, it's kind of everywhere. And I'll give one last praise, and this is a really cool place. And I think most of the VFX industry has been doing this. Render time, if you're rendering images like 3D images, can be very costly. It can take a long time. And for years now, the industry has been using a technique called denoising, which is actually a machine learning based technique to reduce noise in renders, which allows us to lower our render time and reduce render costs. And so that's kind of a big area where you see machine learning having an impact.
Great. Ratchet, do you have something you'd like to add?
I don't think there's anything left to add. But yeah, very similar to, as my peers have said, there's a lot of things that we are exploring. We are an animation studio, so we are very focused on, making sure the artist feel that, whatever we are implementing, whatever we are exploring is actually to augment their workflows, to help them, create art better and more efficiently instead of, trying to reduce the artist. So that keeping that in focus, we recently came out with our new AI policy to make sure that it makes sense for everybody. It makes sense for our clients to make sure that their IPs are secure, our IPs are secure, and keeping that in mind. And I think Lawrence said that too. Like we also have contracts with a lot of clients where we are not officially allowed to use anything AI related as a final image in our final product. But we are doing a lot of R&D. We're exploring a lot of options where we can use AI, especially on the creative side. And there are so many use cases like ideation. We are using it for presentations, reporting, code testing, even code creation. We have models which we have trained on our own code repositories, on our code bases, so then it knows what our styles are for writing code, so we can actually get that. But whatever we do, wherever we use it, our the final touch, the final output always comes from a human user. So that way we can always make sure that, a human is involved in creating anything we use using AI, but also, the final stamp is from a human user. We're not just creating everything from AI and just putting it out there. But there are a lot of different places we are playing around with, exploring. But again, for production purposes, it's still, kind of far away.
Great. Ben, your hand is raised. Sorry, we're playing with our lights here.
So something Ratchet said got everyone excited in that room. I just maybe if I could also synthesize what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, because you led off with the kind of the news, and Lawrence mentioned the hype. And I think our LinkedIn feeds are just full of IKEA exploding videos right now out of the kind of the latest iteration of the hype, and this idea that AI is going to steal your job. I think the boots on the ground reality is Gen AI is so far in most mainstream production pipelines not a creative tool outright. It's not a creation tool, as a efficiency tool. People, I think, are finding ways to incorporate it into workflows in a way that helps us become. I know Christine liked the word augmented, but I think it really is quite apt. It's augmented in the work that we do, which is great. It's speeding things up. It's helping us synthesize. It's helping us problem solve. It's making one person have the power of 10 people. It's exposing gaps and helping us synthesize information. All, I think, in the name of efficiency. At least that's how I've been interpreting what we're able to do. And that can be a financial efficiency. It can be time efficiency. It can be any number of things. So what I've been seeing as I try to connect the hype cycle with the practical reality is AI is quite prevalent. I think we're using it all sorts of different ways, but in no way is someone typing a prompt into Sora and creating a VFX masterpiece, nor is any studio expecting that to be the output or the use case for Gen AI.
Seconded. And I think it's worth noting that there's recent news about Netflix that is going kind of crazy on the internet, that for the show Eternauts, that the generative AI was used to produce an element. But I think if you look at it, it was kind of this piece that was incorporated in, with a lot of work into the whole shot. And it was also, what I found very interesting is that the production had a very small budget for something that uses VFX. And so I think we're going to see kind of almost a stratification that for smaller budget productions, or maybe just people who have a story they want to tell, it's going to be an option that they can use to help tell that story. But for people who or productions that, let's say, have bigger budgets and also have an extremely clear idea of what they want, like most of us here, our clients come with like, this is exactly what I want. And when we're doing an explosion, I want this thing to fly over here and I want it to flow over here. And like, and generative AI isn't really good at kind of following that kind of direction right now. Who knows what it'll do in the future. So, but at the same time, the productions that have that small budget that could never do this kind of thing before, I think that's where we're going to start to see that helping them tell their story.
I think that's actually a really good point about the smaller productions. I think it probably brings filmmaking and makes it more accessible to people who have less experience or much smaller budgets. So I've heard a lot of pros here of how it's a cost and time saver. So I actually want to move on to another question then about what some of the downsides of using generative AI might be. How does it restrict or limit your creative processes?
I think I have a very good pro we haven't touched. I think AI is a great tool to explore beyond the boundaries of our own knowledge and also our creative or artistic inspirations in terms of generating images. A search engine would typically spit out any document with the same words that you put in. When you put a question in AI, it gives you the language to really express your problem and inspires you to store solutions or further research that you would not be able to do without it. So I think this is a very, very good pro of AI, and it applies both to text and image. Image it's really, really good to use in the context of, creating a pitch deck for illustrating the ideas and showing the client converging to a vision, artistic vision that is shared among the studio and the client quicker, because you can quickly iterate and bring images, concepts on the table because of the tool. So I think that this is a major, major pro that can be used in many contexts. So
I'll second that as well. I mean, I've seen cases where, sometimes you have a customer that knows exactly what they want. And sometimes, and a lot of times, you have a customer that doesn't know what they want. And being able to go, okay, you need a robot shark. Here's 200 robot sharks. Point to the one that's speaking to you, and then pass that to a concept artist to then refine and continue. That really shortens the concept cycle, and that helps a production in general. And I've seen this too in other ways. Like, just if you think about it, everything we do is about getting reference, especially in the VFX business. And to get reference, we go on Google. We go, okay, show me a picture of this. And if we think about generative AI, it's taking all the images that were in Google and distilling them down into their patterns and being able to kind of recreate those patterns based on what you're looking for. And I saw this with a student. He was working on a VFX project where he was in a hallway. The camera's inside a hallway, and the hallway was on fire. That was the effect. And I said, okay, go get the reference for that. And guess what? We couldn't find any reference. People don't usually snap photos when they're in a hallway that's on fire. But with generative AI, we were able to produce some images that acted as really good reference for the student to work off of. And I thought it was a really cool example.
That is a great example. What about cons do you see using these generative AI tools?
something. I think the black box nature of AI tools right now is very hard for people that have to do commitments. So when you commit to a bid on a show and the client expects you to cut your costs because you're going to use AI, that's a very hard thing to accept, because you never know if the shortest path from their vision to the realization of the project, and their vision is evolving as they're seeing results, is going to be quicker to do using AI or the traditional method. Because with AI, you roll the dice, you get a result. And not only you change very little of the inputs and you get a much, much different output, that also the output is all smushed together. There's no layers into it that you can decompose and easily modify a part of one. So it's getting better, but this is a big problem right now. It's not easy since it's a black box.
Christine?
Yeah. So I do have a couple here. So one of them is sort of one of the biggest cons, I think, of generative AI is just that it can flatten creativity. So you have to really be careful because it's basically based on training of things that already exist. So there's usually nothing there that's quite unique. So you have to be careful of creating average type art or ideas. And I think another one that I really want to emphasize here is I teach, as I mentioned in the bio. And so one of the courses I teach is algebra geometry. And I think that students are not learning the foundations. At least at my school, will have people getting 100% on every single in-class assignment. And they come into the exams and they can't do like 2 to the exponent 3. So I think you have to do a lot of soul searching here as a student and as a human and be like, do I have these foundational skills? Could I do this if I had enough time? And I think that if you're true with yourself, you will use AI only when you know you have those skills. And I do that too. Like I'm like, okay, I have to put this documentation in GitHub. Is there anything I'm going to learn from knowing that I need to put like asterisk for bold? No, I think I'm good. And so I do that self-check with myself a lot. And I think as students, you need to be honest. Is a mark better or is the foundation of what you're learning better? So that's a con.
Ben?
Just using this, I'm going to use this hand feature liberally. Hopefully, I'm not going to annoy any of the other panelists. Christine, I was like writing all my notes, and this is at the very top of the list, and it's a connective piece as well. I speak in high schools about AI and actually in grade schools. My daughter's going to grade 9, and she's been using ChatGPT for 2 years because her dad's a nerd. And so it's like, how do you build the culture of using AI is a really important skill that we're missing. We barely figured out how to introduce digital media into the classroom. Right? They get Chromebooks, and it's like it's a gong show. Now we're adding super powerful, intelligent programs that allow people to not think. We're creating a huge problem at all levels of education, right up to post-secondary. So Christine's point is 100%. I think there's also then the long-term risk of AI dependency, where we lose creative and critical problem solving, and people become just reliant on, I guess I have to. And there's a great study that came out about this, where it actually has a negative impact on how we think and work. So I'm thinking from a behavioral standpoint. But when we think from the transition from college and university into the workforce, one of the other short-term, I think near-term problems we're going to start seeing is AI is starting to get generative AI, and I'm using this as a kind of broad blanket term, is getting good at taking away and doing the jobs that an entry-level artist or tech professional would use. So a good example might be rotoscoping or wire removal, right? And VFX. And I've never done this myself, but I have produced projects where we had to do it. And what would have taken 20 man hours to accomplish in a scene could be done in far less. And maybe it's not show ready, but it's certainly enough to get the job started so that someone could go in and finish it. So it means you're reducing the need for someone who's at a more junior level where they would do that job as an entry point into a larger production pipeline. And what we're going to see, my guess is, and we're already starting to see, a lot of entry level jobs are going to just start disappearing as the entry level now becomes an intermediate level skill base. And the colleges and universities that are training students into these industries, and we'll focus on VFX and film here, need to know now that there's a higher threshold in terms of what's job ready that's going to start emerging. There's going to be a new set of skills that go along with even an intermediate senior job that are far beyond just the technical use of the platform and more, I think, more challenging to the industry. And I'm speaking now because I sit on the board of CASO, which is the Animation Studios of Ontario. And we work with education a lot, try to, around the bridge between those two states where industry is now going to have to start looking at how do we help bridge that need as well, because colleges and universities can only take it so far. And I think it's going to become a real challenge where you're going to have an entire generation of students graduating into a job market where there are no jobs available to them because the skills now are still higher than that. And an industry workforce that needs to find a way to accommodate how do you bring those people in? Because while it's not a huge problem right now, in 10 years, you're going to have a bunch of people who've retired and left the industry and no new workforce to come up back. So I think those are real. I'm thinking from a kind of industry level challenge. That's going to be an issue across, I think, every category and sector, not just animation, visual effects, and film. I have more, but I'll let my other panelists speak.
Lawrence?
I'll just underscore what Ben and Christine said. I think the way to approach this is to identify the value that you bring to the table as an employee and a worker and artist or whatever your role is. And the problem becomes if the value you bring to the table is I put a prompt into ChatGPT and can use the response, then everybody else has the same value, right? These tools have democratized a level of intelligence and certain level of creativity and output. So you have to, as a person, have a higher standard for the value that you bring to the table that AI can't fill. And this isn't just for students. This is for companies too. Like I see companies going, "Oh, we trained our AI on all our private data and things like that." I'm like, well, there's public models that are just getting absolutely bonkers. If your primary value is generated from AI, it might be A, superseded and B, able to be done by someone else. So the question is, what can you bring to the table that AI can't do? And I think in our industries, it's very much about having a creative vision and having really great problem solving skills. Because the thing is, the AI it trains on the average status quo. But what we know is that we tend to live a lot of time. I spend most of my time in the outliers on the bell curve, the situations that don't have an easy answer, that aren't searchable in Google. And and I think if you focus on making sure you can bring solutions to those kinds of problems to the table, you still have value in a world where a lot is more is done by AI.
I have something to add to that. I think it's a question more than a statement. When I'm thinking about the new generation coming in with all these tools to make a good chunk of the work for them, and they're going to be supervised by somebody that's probably there in the industry since a while, that learned the hard way, developed their creative vision. These people will retire, and at some point we're going to have only people that generate content, and who is going to be have developed their experience to review this and say it's good or not. Maybe AI is going to accelerate that, development of the people that use it to become more critical and be able, or maybe not. I don't know, but I think it's a very interesting question to think about. Who's going to tell us if it's good? Because it's not only in our industry. My wife happens to be a tax lawyer, and her industry also is taken over by AI. The AI is able to write down a bunch of things that it took from the law texts, and she has to review that then. But she's thinking about what's going to happen next. Who's going to review? Going to tell us that this is right or wrong? Once it's like only people that use AI are there in the industry. So.
Richard, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think again, echoing everything that everybody has said before, what I'll say is that in all our R&D and all our testing that we have found, one of the biggest things that we always come across is uh, AI still, lacks like a deeper context. It doesn't really know what the context is when we are trying to create something. A lot of the models that are out there, or even if you train models on your own data, but the base models, have a lot of restrictions. They have a lot of biases. So sometimes it's very difficult to get the result that you need because there are restrictions on violence, restrictions on, other stuff. And we are, animation and VFX, and we always try to create various kind of content, right? So it gets very hard to get the output that you need from these models. It doesn't have like cultural storytelling capabilities. It doesn't know, what kind of specific culture you're focusing on based on the story that you're doing. So there's a lot of gaps in the data sets, in the way these models behave. And yes, you can train the models on your own data, but those gaps are still there, right? So that's definitely one of the biggest thing that we see. On the content side, I feel that what Jonathan said, it's really true. But on the flip side, what we're also seeing is that because there's so much content coming out from I feel that people are also getting very used to that content, that, oh, this is the content I want to see now, this is the content I like. And I know, like, people like us in the industry, we are very critical of our own work because we always want to produce the best work that will work for everybody. But I feel like a lot of the audiences now, they're like, they don't know the difference. They see a video from AI versus they see a video for, somebody spent like 20 hours on. They'll be like, I don't see the difference. It's the same to me. So that's gonna happen more and more, and that will actually even become more difficult to produce something, which is quality, and people know this is quality because there's gonna be so much stuff out there, and it's coming very fast. Like, it's happening so fast. So I think that's something we'll have to really deal with and see, how we can create something which is still unique and on quality that people really want to see. And that's there, they see the value that, yeah, people are still doing it. And this is something that stands out from all the stuff that's out there.
Ben.
Wretched. I just like that. I had my other note here, which is the culture around what AI is, how the culture responds to and reacts to the idea of AI at 100,000 foot level. I just watched The Studio on Apple TV last night. I was watching an episode where they were all worried about casting and making sure they kind of checked a certain amount of checkbox and didn't want to insult anyone. And at the end, everything fell apart because they announced they were going to use AI in the project. and everyone just like lost it and they thought this is terrible. And I think it was a really good reflection of what's currently happening with this hype that's been building up around AI and how we're being saturated by it. I kind of look at it like clip art. At first, it was great, get a DVD or CD-ROM full of art. It's amazing. I don't need to draw. And then eventually, it's like this is cheap. No one cares, and we don't like it. We can tell it's bad. So I think what we're seeing already very quickly is there's a cultural backlash emerging, but and this is an important but. Ratchet's nailed it in that there's a study out of MIT, and they talked about having people evaluate AI versus human generated work as articles. And they had three study groups. The first study group was don't tell anyone which is which and just let them evaluate the quality based on what they liked. The second, they said some of this is generated, some of this is human. You tell us what you think. And they evaluated them. And the third, they said these are the articles that are written by humans. These are the articles written by developed by Gen AI. Tell us which ones you think. And you can probably imagine where the study went. The first group, they were like over indexing on how much they like the Gen AI work. They were like, this is great. The second group is pretty much even balanced in the middle. And the third group biased towards the human generated work. And what that tells us in a certain degree is at the cultural level, provenance matters. People care where the work came from and who made it. I think the economics is going to drive the business to force it a different way, but that when people know this was generated by AI, it diminishes its value in people's mind. And that's an important flag for us in terms of how the future is going to look. And I think it also is sort of like a point of hope as how do we as an industry, thinking film and television, respond to the idea of AI, knowing that the audience can't always tell the difference between human or not, and may even have a preference towards the generative stuff in its quality. And that's a very interesting dynamic. Layer into that the morale component of what it's like to work in an industry where people are now diminishing the value of the work you do, the hard work, the craft, the years of experience. And there's, I think, a real cultural component to all of this that will, I think, in some form or fashion, have a real bearing on how things emerge in the next 5, 10 years.
Yeah, and I think we may already be seeing it self-destruct. Like there's a kind of a very popular series generated by AI of like talking monkeys in different situations. And what we're seeing already is that because it's generated with something like Google VO and it's really just prompt based, you don't even need to know the prompt. You can literally hand the video to Google VO and say, give me the prompt that will generate this and then make your own version of it. And not only that, you can automate it. So what actually happened is someone created a bot that just goes and finds the most popular ones, copies them, and makes them topical based on whatever's in the news. And it's just spitting out content constantly. And I think that was one of the things that led to YouTube actually cracking down on that. So it kind of underscores the if it's easy for you to do, it's easy for someone else to do. And the big question being, are people just going to accept that ease, or are people going to start really feeling the need for authenticity because they're just surrounded by this constant stream of content?
Ben?
I just got one more thing, I promise. Which is everywhere I've seen this hype. Twitter is a great example of go to Twitter, follow some AI hype influencers, and see what they say. Oftentimes, it's like Hollywood is screwed. This is never going to happen. And their ideal output is you could just type in a prompt and have a movie made for you. And I'd sit there and think, I don't know a single person who wants to just sit there and come up with their own idea and then watch it, right? I go to a movie to get inspired by someone else's interpretation of something, an idea, a visual. I want to be inspired by something new. Why am I now going to be that person? And I think this is where the idea of what AI is going to be creatively is completely mismatched with how people behave and think when it comes to the work that we create for the world.
All right. So we have a few more questions left here. The next one, and we've touched on topics from all of these so far, but what do you see as some of the big limitations of generative AI? And do you believe that researchers will ever be able to eliminate those limitations? So I'm going to start with Wretched here, since we haven't heard much
Yeah,
from
sure. I think one of the biggest, I would say that at least we see right now, as we are exploring things, is it really struggles with like any kind of long form coherence where, we want to create stuff. And it may not be, like again for final output, but again, every time we want to create something which is longer than 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or in context, it's difficult, right? And maybe yes, the models will get better, the tech will get better, so maybe it will be there. But even then, it will still lack, the stuff that I mentioned, like for culture specificity, emotional depth, like that are still not there. And we don't know, if that will ever be there, or when that will be there. But for us to being able to use it in like something productively on the creative side, like those are definitely one of the bigger things that are lacking. I think it could be like a hybrid, future where it is, and we are seeing it already. Like it is still a tool that we are using within our pipelines, within our productions to augment or create efficiencies. But it's not a tool for like funnel storytelling. It's not gonna do that. It's just gonna help us create the components of that, help us create the components faster. But those struggles are still there.
Jonathan? Limitations.
Yeah. Mine is a bit higher level. I think energy is a big limitation. Right now we have issues. We have contracts. I've seen the same contracts as Lawrence, where there's some clauses that we cannot use AI for because of the legality of it. So that means we could benefit from AI if perhaps we trained it ourselves, but it requires a lot of resources to do that. And I think that, in the future, we're going to find problems that are resolved by AI. And like any other technology, we're going to find ways to optimize. When we take an off-road vehicle to get to a faraway destination, and we find it worth to go there, we build a road, we build a more efficient way to get. So I think it's just the same. And yeah, that's what I think. And maybe anecdote. I was reading last week, talking about energy, that there are very serious plans of developing data centers in orbit because cooling is free and solar panels never get shaded by, they always get light. So that's how much energy, like it's unimaginable that we need that, but this is where we are.
Well, the US government, I think, is literally firing up 3 Mile Island again. It's a big nuclear reactor.
Crazy.
Does anyone else want to add to the topic of limitations? Lawrence?
I think I'll just add, and it's getting better. It's, wildly changing, but that's part of the problem is, it's hard to follow the technology. Like it's hard to learn something. And at some point when you want to put something into production, you have to invest in it. And if in 6 months it's going to be obsolete, it's hard to invest in it. So you really need a scenario and a project to pin that work on, so that it's effectively project related. And one of the scenarios that I see that it does tend to work well is when you have very long repetitive thing. You're doing the same or similar thing many times over. This is where I see it's useful. You have to put in that effort to train it, to be consistent and go through that trouble. But if you do that, it works. But that effort isn't paid back unless you can realize that effort over like hundreds of shots. And the problem for some of us, we're a medium-sized VFX studio. We don't do thousands of shots on a movie. We do hundreds of shots. So it's harder to see that value. And if you don't put in all that effort, you end up with kind of a slot machine, and it's very hard to work that way where you kind of go, okay, show me this, and then you send it to the client. They're like, well, I don't like that. You're like, okay, let me try again, and it's not a technology that really works. Our client will go, hey, make this thing more blue. And we have to be able to do that. And I think the technology will eventually get to the point where you have that level of control, but it is absolutely not there right now.
It's definitely the case. I've been experimenting it with myself and trying to get it to do what you want it to do. It doesn't quite understand the difference between left and right now.
I mean, it's not intelligent, right? Like it's
No.
literally just synthesizing the training data set, and it appears to be intelligent because that training data set has billions of parameters in it. But to me, I always said it's like trying to get a cat to do something. Doesn't work out.
I always say the artificial part is true, intelligent part is not true.
All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to move to probably one of the biggest questions that people have. And it's, again, the one that's all over the news is the use of generative AI affecting jobs in this industry?
Um,
All right. We're going to talk about that in the next panel as well, but I think that I hope we're not alone, but I think it's very generalized in the industry. But there seems to be some uncertainty on the part of people that are greenlighting projects. And I think that right now, AI is one factor among the dozens of factors that are impacting the deciders to greenlight projects. They try to find, oh, can we wait a bit more, and maybe there's going to be a way to do this cheaper. So I think this is a major way it can impact not directly the artist, but through the fact that it's harder to to get some work.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is absolutely it is. Is it affecting them to the degree that I think some of the people might be expecting? Maybe not. But this is so coming from animation. I graduated in the early 2000s from a classical animation program at Sheridan College, and that was all paper on pencil or pencil on paper. I didn't pass because I did paper on pencil technique. It didn't work. But the idea was you're drawing frame by frame every single piece, and it's by pencil on paper. Then you're putting onto some sort of plastic sheet, like an acetate, you're inking it, you're painting it, the whole bit. So this is like the old school classical animation. And as I graduated, Flash animation, Macromedia Flash was becoming more and more prevalent. People are using it as I was literally there at the nexus of when it went from, this is a fun little tool for websites to, oh, we could use this for production. And of course, that transformed the 2D animation industry. CG had its own versions, where now instead of having teams and teams of people, you would create objects and then you'd use the platform to help animate between two different poses or a variety of different pieces. And so you're taking the job of 20 people and allowing one person to do it. And I think that while that didn't necessarily change the creative, it will change the creative process. I look at components of AI and see that same like efficiency. You're now helping one person do what 10 people could do. So it means 9 people don't need to do that work. Well, yeah, you're going to have less jobs as a result. And I think, Jonathan's point around there's larger macroeconomic things that are going on in the industry that are making it hard. You're already starting to see some of those little bits happening. I think visual effects, animation, and film, it's not quite as bad as you're seeing in a lot of other spaces. Tax law, right? Like I look at lawyers, real estate, diagnostic medicine, anything that requires synthesis and pattern development, synthesis of a large elaborate system and the ability to then recognize and interpret patterns and manage those things. Those fields are already seeing an impact and they will continue to see an impact. I think it's just a matter of time before those sorts of things start to impact us further. And the economic forces that want that to happen are going to make it happen, right? They want studios, anyone's commissioning entity, if it's a streamer, if it's a movie studio, they want the most for the least possible. That's just basic economics. So I think that if you look at it from that level, it will affect jobs in some form or fashion. The new jobs that come out are going to be interesting because that's the other output here is, you squeeze a bunch of meat through the grinder, you will get some interesting sausages. I don't know where that metaphor is supposed to be, but ultimately it's people may have new jobs and those will emerge. Prompt wrangling, that's probably not a thing, but it's like in the interim, I think there is going to be a squeeze and it will continue.
Yeah, I think, and just, I mean, I don't want to repeat what everything Ben said. I think to boil it down though, I think the most vulnerable jobs are going to be the ones that are repetitive, template driven. So you're just going to have to work on, your tech fluency if you're an artist, your, critical thinking, creativity, and it's not a well, it's a shift in jobs, okay? And so just keep those points in your mind when you're starting to think and look for jobs.
And I think none of this is new. I mean, it's not like we're using the same tools and software and workflows we were 10 years ago, right? And it's interesting to me because the people who I see the most successful are the ones who identify themselves as with the outcome of the tools and not the usage of the tools. And that was me. Like I started my when I started, I was like, I was really big into this one renderer and everybody knew me for, oh yeah, if you want to learn how to do that renderer, you talk to that guy. And then very quickly that renderer became obsolete. And I was like, crap, my whole identity is gone. But then when I realized that I should really be focusing on, hey, I produce really nice images, not I do this tool, um, it opened a lot of doors for me. And I'm kind of encouraging that all my students, take that approach where you don't focus on the kind of day-to-day, like what buttons do I press as your identity of what you do. It's the outcome that you produce that matters because the day-to-day what you're going to do, it's going to change, AI or not.
All right. So we're nearing the end of this first session here. So just to make a really quick final question then, what do you think the future looks like with the existence of generative AI tools in film? Do you think it's something that's going to become increasingly pervasive in your tool chains? Or do you think it's going to reach some magical peak and then fall off the face of the earth? Jonathan?
I think it's going to become more broken down in smaller parts and more controllable. So it can be used to augment more workflows than to replace them. Because we always want to keep our agency, our input in the process. And that's what we need the AI tools to do, and that's what they're going to become.
Ratchet?
Yeah, I think I agree. Even though the technology is still moving pretty fast, there's something new out there every day. But because it has been around for whatever number of years now, we are already seeing what technologies will be beneficial now and what can be beneficial in the future. So, the research is already going on, where we can break it down, where we can apply so that even if it changes, we can just replace that small part, but keep that new process in place because again it's kind of defining where we can augment some of these processes and create those efficiencies. So even if there's not like one click AI that can do everything, there are a lot of small ones that can help different processes, and get them get those specific processes efficient. So I think there's definitely a place for that, and I feel that it kind of ties into the job stuff as well, where as new postings are coming out and some of these AI technologies get more prevalent in the industry, we will expect people to know them and say, hey, do you know how to use that? You know it? Okay, we'll hire you because you already kind of, have that experience. So I feel they're going to go hand in hand. But yes, that's kind of where I think it will go.
And,
Yeah.
and I'll second that real quick. Sorry, Christine. The machine learning, I think, is something that a lot of people are just sleeping on in general. Like we tend to focus on generative AI and these massive models, but we've seen a lot of success from building very small localized models where you have anytime you're doing any sort of repetition, here's the input data, here's the output data, and we have similar input data and we need similar output data. We can probably build a localized machine learning model. And this is something that makes our clients happy because we're not using unlicensed material to do it. So I see that kind of being more prevalent in the future on my end.
Christine?
Yeah, I think just to reiterate, but this is kind of more about, I guess, our opinion. I think it's going to be a hybrid one. So, where human creativity and our AI work together. But I think that we have some really big questions that we have to navigate through, authorship, IP, trust, quality, all those things. And so it's not just about the technology side of it. I think once we have a lot of those ethical frameworks in place, I think that's gonna, when those chips fall, I think we're gonna have a better sense of where it all lands because it's all so new. Um, yeah, yeah,
Ben?
I will just add to this. Computers came along, and I think in the mainstream really around the 90s, like people really bringing them into the home. mobile devices coming into our pockets over the early 2000s. These were all disruptive technologies that became normalized and became just background. I think AI right now is just going through, it's coming out during a time when people want to point to and talk about things that are exciting. And it does have such a broad impact, but I don't think the impact is as different as those other pieces are, and our society kind of adapted and normalized around them. But what was required and what will be required is, how do we think about humans and our relationship with technology in the professional workspace and the skills required to then be successful? So it's really about like thinking about a new generation of workers. I don't like the word, but professionals who have a set of skills that allows them to be adaptive across multiple platforms. They're problem-oriented, outcomes-oriented problem solvers versus skill-specific service providers. Because the nature of AI, much like those other devices or technologies, is just changing the dynamic of how we interact with the products that we create, the product and our outputs. And so it's going to be here. I think everyone's nailed it. It's like, it's not going to be the thing that one ChatGPT is not going to revolutionize the world. It's going to be a bunch of little incremental pieces, but now how we interact with those technologies is going to require a whole other level of skills, especially to create value. So it's going to be an interesting time for anyone in this room. I'm assuming everyone in this room is largely a student, but anyone over the next 20 years, I think, and even people working, we're all going to have to really start thinking about what's the value we create when we have these tools at our disposal.
All right.
Or I should say not tools, methodologies, because it will be methodologies, not just tools.
Of course. All right. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this panel today. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
We really
thank you.
appreciate
It's
your
great.
insight on this topic. All right. So everyone, hope you have a good day. And for those of you who are here, there will be a coffee break outside in a moment. And
Nice
we'll
to meet
join here.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Cheers.